Hey everyone, it's TB Shores. It's March 14th, 2021. It's 1:21 p.m. I just wanted to hopefully finish up making the connection with the peatland and the building blocks, okay? Now, we had already looked in this article here and established that the peatland is responsible for your building block system. And the article that I was getting into before I ended the other was showing us a little more detail about how the peatland is responsible for the building block system. Okay, as I was reading, we have this active material that rises up from the gland of the building blocks. Okay, it's called this right here. I was calling it ink R, okay, but you can see there is how it is in print. Okay, the ink R, let's come down here to this sentence, and this gives us a little bit of detail about what the ink R does. Okay, it says that it appears to be involved in activating, building, or altering the activity of the genes, or influencing the function of the proteins, or acting as scaffolds. I think that's how you say that, scaffolds, for the organization of complexes of proteins. So knowing certain sources of information that I have viewed, that being the information that I had told you you could email me and I would send those sources to you. Those sources that I had viewed, I can see with the information they had put out, and this right here, how the stick, how it ties the stick and all this together and what they're trying to do within this temple in the dwelling place of the Lord in our holiest of holies, so that the son of perdition can sit in the temple of God, showing himself to be as God. Okay, now having said that, I'm trying to think, just bear with me just a minute. I think this was the main thing that I wanted to get across, was the significance of this active material that comes up out of the peatland building blocks. Do some homework on it so it'll be more clear to you, because I can't really put all that in this because it might not be good. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. I don't want any flags. All right, so we're looking at how we are tying together the peatland and the building blocks, how they connect, and obviously the peatland is a source. Okay, it is a source of the building blocks because it says it's the material arising from the peatland building blocks. Okay, so it's like they are bonded together. Okay, they have to function together. All right, And so then I wanted to pop on here for a second on this article, because as we mentioned in the other video, we just touched lightly on this this DMT. Now this is a transmitter, and you can see here what kind, and it's also called the molecule of God. So there again, we are seeing within different articles how this connects to God, and very clearly we can understand how it is the dwelling place for the Lord within this temple. Right here is another place where it says scientific studies have shown DMT in two particular moments in life, and again we're talking about birth and death. It says this demonstrates the fact that this DMT acts as a bridge between the physical body and the spiritual world. And I think we've established that pretty well within this. The Lord just wanted me to connect a few dots so that it was very clear, the connection between the building blocks and the peak land, because it's going to be important to understand that as we get into other things of how what he is showing, how it affects the body and how it's going to be used to manipulate and control. So I'm trying to think where to go from here, because I expected this to take longer. I may cut this off here in a second. No, I'm going to go into this because I think we got plenty of time. Now, speaking of the peak land, now we understand the Lord showed us back here in Psalm 55 with the word day and how it connects to the peak land, because it's about that 24-hour cycle and how it's affected by the light and the darkness. Okay, now yes, that's about a physical application. The peak land is affected by light and darkness, and the spiritual application is it being the seat of the soul. It is affected by light and the darkness within. Okay, and then we saw, I think it was in Matthew 6, I don't think I have that pulled up right now, how the scripture confirmed to us that the third eye, or the peak land, is mentioned in Matthew 6, and it talks about whether it be light or whether it be dark. Okay, about being one with the Lord or being in darkness. So here we can clearly see that is about connecting us to the peak land. But something else that the Lord showed me within the Word is in the instructions that he laid out in 1 Kings chapter 6 of the building of the temple. And I think this is, let me back up a little bit. This is actually, let's see, it says in the month of Ziph, and yes, I have included that in past videos over time. Ziph is significant. We may discuss that later, but not right now. In the month of Ziph, which is the second month, that he began to build the house of the Lord. So this is after he's already started building, okay? So we see, as we come down through these verses, and I'm going to point out just these verses right here. Verse 7, now the one I'm going to dwell on will be verse 8, but I want to look at the one before and after so you can understand what I'm saying here. Okay, so verse 7 says, and the house, when it was in building, was built of stone, made ready before it was brought thither, so that there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron, heard in the house while it was being built. Okay, and so this will be the verse that we focus on. But the verse after says, so he built the house and finished it, and covered the house with beams and boards of cedar. So you can see how verse 7 and verse 9 kind of connect with the same thought going on, okay? But when we look at the verse in between, now remember, this is going back to understanding when we see something that looks like it don't quite fit in this particular spot in the word, most often we need to dig, because that's where the Lord has placed a nugget. That's how he's hidden things in his word to be revealed when the time was right, because he didn't want it in the surface reading, okay? Because that allows the enemy to understand more than he wants them to from the word. So this kind of stands out as being different train of thought from the verse before and the verse after. So now remember, we got to look at this in spiritual eyes, and I want to show you something before we do that. Okay, we know that we were shown the seat of the soul is located at the center of the brain between the two lobes, right here at the center between the lobes. Okay, and then we're going to look at this right here. This is an overview. Right here we see something called the third ventricle. Now, a ventricle is a cavity or chamber within the brain, okay? And it's not just within the brain, it's called ventricles even in the heart, but it's a word used for cavity or chamber. So this is the third ventricle, which is in the center of the brain, okay? Wait a minute, I didn't want to go there yet. Okay, so when we understand the location of this third eye, we've got to remember it is called that. It is called that, and it's significant in understanding this scripture that I'm about to read. Just as we saw in Matthew 6, that the pea gland is mentioned in scripture, we see it here in the construction, in the building of the temple. Now, you've got to look at it through spiritual eyes and not through a physical building of a structure, okay? Because what the Lord is showing here is that he does have this hidden in his word, and we just need to dig for it. It says, the door for the middle chamber. The middle chamber, what is the middle chamber? It is this third ventricle, okay? When looking at it from terms of the spiritual house, okay? The middle chamber. Okay, speaking about the middle chamber, the third ventricle, you'll see that clearly in a minute. The door for the middle chamber was in the right side of the house. And they went up here. Here is the only reference we have, or the only time we will see winding stairs written out in the KJV Bible, okay? But it says, and they went up with winding stairs. What did we learn winding stairs was? We learned that winding stairs was the building blocks, okay? The building blocks right here, the winding stairs, remember? So keeping that in mind, and I'm going to have to cut this off. We'll get into this when I get back. I love y'all. Bye-bye.